Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our State of Voice 2018 event. My name's Jason Hinks. I'm the CEO here at Formation Technologies. For those of you who are new to Formation, I'll just give you a little bit of information about our organization. We're a full-service digital agency with a commitment to the development of local talent. We have 60 of the country's best developers working in an agile environment. We've been around for 17 years, which is a long time in the tech space. And through that time, we've gained plenty of insight into how businesses can leverage digital technology to drive business outcomes, which brings us to today's topic. So like most of the conversations we have here at Formation, it started with our clients. Our clients were asking us if they should be using voice as part of their digital roadmaps. So we did some research. And as we scratched the surface, we began to understand just how important a technology of voice is going to be. In fact, Comscore recently published some data suggesting that by 2020, 50% of all searches will happen by voice. Like most in the room, we're fairly early in our journey, but I'd like to share with you a little bit of the insight that we've uncovered so far. And it focuses on two areas. The first one is utility. And utility centers on creating rich user experiences through voice. While availability focuses on leveraging voice to help your customers find you and having meaningful conversations with them when they do. We've captured these insights in more detail in a report, which you have on your seats. And we'll also make that available as an ebook post-event. But you haven't come here to listen to me speak. You've come here to listen to the experts. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce those experts. First of all, I'd like to introduce Nima Vadi from Amazon. Nima is Head of Solutions Architecture Asia Pacific at Amazon Alexa Skills Team. A tenured Amazonian, Nima has helped brands across Australia and New Zealand engage more customers through voice with Alexa Skills service and has been instrumental in the launch of Amazon Echo across 7 different countries. Nima spent most of his career working as a software engineer and developer advocate, and he's passionate about enabling developers to build compelling voice experiences. Welcome, Nima. You will have noticed we had a little bit of a change in the lineup today. So originally we had Mark Thomas who was speaking, but when we knew that, when we were made aware that Nima was available, we jumped at the opportunity to have him here, and I'm sure he'll give us some great insight. I'd next like to introduce Formation's own Head of Delivery, Scott Morris. Scott is one of the founders here at Formation. Scott has overseen countless software projects for clients including ABC, SG Fleet, Grace, and Kennard Self-Storage. Welcome, Scott. And last but not least, we have Formation's resident digital marketing strategist, Regan McGregor. I'm going to make myself comfortable on these quite uncomfortable stools. Is it possible to be comfortable on a stool? So as our guest, Nima, I thought I would direct our first question at you. Why is voice becoming such an important tool for business?
I actually did a little bit of studying in your pamphlet right before this, so yep. I'm prepared for this question.
These aren't prepared questions.
Oh no, I just meant the content. No, it's very. Apparently, when we first started this in the U.S., it was a much harder conversation to have with businesses, where it was a conversation around like, this is maybe an innovation play for your company. Just dip a toe in and build something that could be a proof of concept you can sell internally. And maybe it would see, we wouldn't say it like this, but maybe they would see some value out of it. Maybe they wouldn't. And it was, most brands were pretty timid, but the reception was warm because building and deploying something was fairly simple, lightweight. They could, quickly, there's a lot of experts in the space that were able to leverage other existing skill sets like mobile developers to help deploy these voice experiences. But it's really evolved quite quickly, and I've been lucky enough to see that evolution from the US to UK and now in Australia. It's really become the next medium, the next space where companies will interact with customers or are interacting with customers. So the statistics that you see, like that, it's actually happening. Like these brands are actually seeing success in engaging customers on an ongoing basis, making it part of their daily routines, sticky, simple, short interactions that are natural and really comfortable to users. So it's the success is, I think it's there. It's just a matter of kind of embracing it in each new market.
Yeah, it certainly feels like voice is here. Maybe a question for you, Regan. So for organizations that are looking to start their journey, where should they start?
Yeah, so I think one of the easiest places to start to kind of start building a presence is in voice search.
Yeah.
Especially around local search. So there were some statistics out of Google that every year on year, 130% increases they're seeing in searches that are personalized around near me, so location based. And I think that provides a real opportunity for businesses to be seen where they are. So by optimizing your My Business listing or your Bing business listing, providing information like your trading hours and the payments you accept is a really easy way to get started and start optimizing for voice.
Well, it feels like that the place to start is in a quite functional space, which is not surprising. Scott, where do you think the opportunities are for brands?
Yeah, for brands, I think definitely as a first port of call, get your voice search optimized. You need to be ready for that because voice search is here. It's already very, very popular because it's so easy to use and it feels natural. But beyond that, I guess similar to what Nima was saying, here in Australia, it's still fairly new. So for brands, I think it's a good opportunity to position yourselves as innovators, as a brand who can keep up with consumer technology, and a brand that is in the same space where your digital native customers are. I think that's really important, and we've already seen brands in Australia do that. You've got Qantas, you've got Uber, you've got some of the banks. They've dipped their toe in the water, as Nima said. A lot of them are still fairly small and proof of concepts, but I think just being there right now is a big opportunity to be a leader.
Yeah, and it feels like I talked a little bit about in my opening about having voice be the mechanism to find you, but then having a meaningful conversation with your customers. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about the customer value in that equation?
Yeah, so I guess there's two main things that I see where voice really does a good job. So one is convenience, just that hands-free, eyes-free, frictionless ability to interact with that voice interface. So if it's a really quick thing like ordering your favorite pizza, via Domino's, that's possible right now. Whether it's booking a table through Dimmy, again that's doable right now. It's those quick little frictionless opportunities to interact with the brand of a voice that can work really well. Another area that I see that can work is it's a new kind of content marketing. So an example I've seen from the US is with Tide. They do kind of carpet cleaning solutions, and they provided, or they built an Alexa skill to answer the question, how can I get this stain out of my carpet? And that had answers to over 200 different types of stains, and I think that's a good example, a neat example of providing useful content for the user while subtly pushing your brand. Yeah,
simple but effective. Like that one took all of us honestly by surprise by how popular it became. It's just something that people in their day-to-day lives it's a question you would ask, like, how do I get a grass stain out? And it's a really useful on an ongoing basis.
I think the question that the entire room wants to know is there an answer to the question, should I eat this Tide Pod?
I hope they have an answer to that. I haven't tried to.
Seems to be a scary trend. So maybe you've talked a little bit about the fact that lots of brands are embracing voice, and you gave a couple of examples and organizations dipping their toe in the water. But who's doing it well? Like, even though we're in the formative stages, who would you point to as being the sort of shining lights in the process so far?
Yeah, and I mean, and I should clarify that statement. I meant they were dipping a toe in the water at the very beginning. We've definitely moved to the point where it's fully embraced by a lot of organizations, and we saw this actually at CES in 2015 versus 2018, where you'd meet with one developer from an innovation group as opposed to the next time you meet with this company 2 years into their skill being live, the voice experience being live. It's you have 20 people around the room ideating on different ways to build something really successful. The ones that have done it really well are, again, the skills that and the voice experiences that are simple, easy to use, and sticky on an ongoing basis. Like from a kind of just our most notable one that is always popular in every market is Jeopardy, which is it's a game show in the U.S. And then from there, like the ones that are just provide utility, like calling an Uber, ordering your favorite meal, reordering something, ordering pizza from Domino's, reserving a table, and then just some of the more just sillier, fun ones. A lot of the trivia ones, jokes, simple things that can actually help you, remember what to order from a supermarket. For example, in the UK, there's a supermarket chain called Ocado that does online delivery. It's quickly become one of the experiences that's the most popular. Just adding and reminding yourself to pick up something or throwing something into your cart to order it later. And then the one use case that is still the most popular is streaming audio.
Yeah.
So this massive, amazing piece of technology that's still being used as a radio. But yeah, it works.
So I think it's really interesting that we're talking about the experience and the journey that brands are taking, kind of being anchored in what the sort of personal requirements and the personal journey is. I'd be interested to know from the panel, just maybe an example or two from each of you at how you use voice day to day. Maybe we start with you, Scott.
Yeah, so I use it I use it a lot. I use it for all the typical stuff: playing music, managing my shopping list, so adding items to the shopping list, weather, reminders, timers. That's the stuff that everyone uses it for. I've also used it to check if a business is open or closed. Before I head out, I use it to see when I need to leave by a certain time to get to a particular destination. I've also programmed it to so that whenever my 3-year-old son asks when is bedtime, the time is now. The answer is always now. But again, I think what I find really great is just being playful with it. So just trying things out. So as an example, I was out at Westfields, 2 kids in tow, and I'd finished my shopping, and I realized I didn't remember where I parked my car. So I whipped out the phone and gave it a shot. Where I just asked it, where did I park? And sure enough, it just came back. I think you parked here, and it came up with a map, and there it was. So I think just having that ability to be playful with it and discover those new functions will help people with the service discovery, which can be a bit of a challenge. But I imagine that's all really important. I imagine that the platforms are kind of aggregating all of that information and knowing what customers want and then guiding that to what to build next.
It sounds like the bedtime function alone has your Alexa pay for itself already.
Yeah.
Maybe how about you?
So I live on Bronte Road, and there's about 58 different buses that can take me to Bondi Junction, it seems like. And I've finally gotten the hang of it, but in the morning I just check, I use the Next There skill to tell me like which bus I should be getting on and what time it leaves, and it gives me just enough time to get there, right as it's arriving. And then a whole different slew of them. I'm flying to the U.S. next week, and I was checking Qantas to see flight status, gate information, those types of things. It integrates really well with just my day-to-day activities. Like in the morning, listening to the news and listening to music while we cook dinner. I honestly do use it for cooking quite often, or just getting recipe ideas. I'm probably an example of someone that's embraced it fully, just given the amount of time I've been used to it. But there's a lot of different options and opportunities.
Regan?
Yeah, so I'm a big user of the technology, and usually I find that it's most helpful when you're in the middle of something, driving or in your living room, having a conversation, and you just remember something and you need a quick way to get it down. And I can think of the most notable example at the moment. Me and my fiance, we're planning a wedding, which I highly advise against. It's very, and I was getting in lots of trouble because I kept forgetting stuff. I kept forgetting, I need to call this person, I need to call this person, I need to do this. So I found this handy app called Todoist, and it has an app that goes across my phone, it's on my watch, it's on my computer, and across all the voice devices. So whenever I'm driving in the car or I'm at home sitting on the couch, I can say, add this to my to-do list, or what's due today, and it'll give me the information that I need. And so I'm getting in a lot less trouble because of that.
Again, paying for itself, I would say, at this point. I talked a little bit about in my opening about the requests that we had from our clients, Regan, and a lot of those early conversations were around process automation. And it's probably not the thing that we intuitively think of when we think of voice. Talk a little bit about the opportunities for process automation with voice.
Yes, I think there's definitely opportunities for businesses to use this non-consumer facing. And one notable thing I can think of is, coming from an e-commerce background, we can't all have robots in our warehouse like Amazon. So I thought, what if you could use Alexa to communicate when your hands are busy, when you can't touch a screen. So imagine like a forklift driver could be driving to the pallet that they need to be picking up, and they just ask Alexa, where is my next order located? They go down the aisle, grab it. Or even somebody on a picking bench could ask Alexa, what's in this next order? And then mark it off as shipped. And it just provides some utility there in the fact that they don't have to bend and turn around and possibly even injure themselves for manual kind of actions. It just makes life a heap easier for them.
So it sounds like some good applications in the warehouse. What about in the office?
Yeah, so in the office, I can see applications for voice-activated office equipment. I can see applications for really even just as an eavesdropping agent for any conversations between two people. So.
Please explain more, Scott.
So maybe eavesdropping isn't the best word to use, but it can surface relevant data for a meeting, for example, or maybe if it's in a call center type of operation, you can have an assistant there that's surfacing relevant information to that call for the operator. It's just about being an assistant that's there to help in those types of opportunities. But I know Alexa have an entire suite, Alexa for Business. So I think you might be able to shine some light on that.
Yeah, it's something that it's still pretty early days. It's being run through the AWS part of Amazon, and it's basically there's different functions you could use for different environments. Anything from simple as like in our buildings, not yet in Sydney, but in Seattle, you can walk into any conference room and say, Alexa, is this room available?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if any of you that work in bigger offices, it's always kind of like a battle of like conference.
Well, the answer's always no here.
Yeah, there's always some person that's booked it for like 8 weeks and never shows up. But you can book it in real time as soon as you just walk into the room, or even starting a conference call. There's a lot of exciting advancements that are around the corner in that space, but those are just kind of the few.
Still simple but cool.
Yeah.
Regan, you talked a little bit about voice and optimizing for voice. What are the things that we need to be doing different when we're optimizing for voice?
Yeah, so I think there's three kind of major things with voice search. Obviously, local is a huge thing in voice, but there's also answering questions and kind of understanding entities. So your customers have questions, and that's become very prevalent. Even the way people search on a desktop computer or a mobile is they're becoming expecting more from the search engine. So they'll say, what is something, rather than just a few keywords into a page. And I think that building out content for voice search and even for voice assistants that answers just questions sets you up as the industry authority, and people become trusting of you because you have the answers every time that they've got questions about that specific topic. And I think the other application is the major search engines are really trying to understand entities. So things like movies and businesses and the different parts that make up that. So, the actors or the directors. And so building up structured data through the various means is really helping to make these voice search experiences a lot better when they can understand that information.
And how about the more transactional side? So I've heard the term voice commerce a couple of times in the office. If it's not a term, it is now. But how can voice be used in a more transactional environment?
Yeah, I think in the fast-moving consumer goods space, I think Domino's is a perfect example of where convenience pays over price. If you're able to just order your favorite pizza quickly, then you're able to leverage yourself as a more convenient brand rather than compete on price, which is always a race to the bottom. But I also think there's some opportunities in the more micro conversion style, and that stuff like I could imagine Mercedes or something have an app which would let you book a test drive and do those micro conversions. And because it has such less friction, you're not having to fill in forms and whip out your phone and that type of thing. You could even be doing it in the car. Like, I think it provides some opportunity to kind of really be there and provide less friction.
It sounds like we've had lots of exciting themes and exciting opportunities that have been uncovered today. If I'm sitting in the audience, I'm thinking that this sounds very exciting, but it also sounds a little daunting and maybe quite expensive. The question I have for you, Scott, is how much of your existing web and business platforms can you leverage when you're making the transition to voice?
Yeah, quite a lot. So you just need to think of voice as just another type of interface into those systems. So those systems would already have a graphical user interface, typically a website. They probably already have application programming interfaces or APIs for those systems to integrate with other systems. So really, the work to enable voice, it all goes into the voice experience itself. So all that work is building something that uncovers the user's intent, gathers the right information to service that intent, and then it can call your API functions on your existing systems. So so there's a lot of you can leverage a lot of what you already have and focus all that new effort on providing a really good experience for the voice user.
Mm. It feels like, Nima, I was quite an early adopter of voice, probably not as early as you, but it feels like it's gotten a lot better really quickly. So, some of the sort of, early frustrations, the early sort of challenges seem to disappear quite quickly. And almost on a daily basis, the experience seems to be getting better. What's driving that? What's behind that kind of rapid improvement of voice?
It's a combination of a few things. The biggest advancements that have come in the last 5 to 10 years, especially in ASR, which is just speech recognition technology, it's driven by advancements in machine learning and cloud computing primarily. But I don't want to give you guys an overly simplistic view of it. It takes a lot of manpower and effort and energy and just engineering talent to be able to make these systems not only just work on just the base level Alexa experience or just voice experience, but creating a seamless platform for any developer who wants to create a voice experience and have that just work. There's quite a bit of thought and planning that went into that, but there is definitely some elements of machine learning that allow us to do this on the fly in an automated fashion, and then being able to leverage incredibly powerful computers, which we have a lot of.
Yeah,
it makes it a lot easier.
It's always handy to have a couple of those. Yeah. Scott, I might throw the next question as a bit of a curly one at you, which is obviously the topics of privacy and data security have been fairly present in our feeds and our newspapers, if they still exist, fairly recently. Talk to us a little bit about what should be the considerations that organizations should be making when it comes to their sort of journey into voice.
Yeah, it's definitely a sensitive time right now. I'm sure everyone's been getting barraged with all the privacy policy updates from every single online platform you've ever signed up for, with GDPR coming into effect this month. But look, I think voice is just like any other digital application. Businesses and consumers need to be take the same level of precaution like they would with building a mobile app or a website. But granted, there are some unique things about the voice technology that do make it a bit more interesting. So you don't want to place these devices near your window so that every man and his dog walking past can check your bank balance. That's not a good thing. So I think there's some work there to be done in recognizing voice signatures and voice matching, and making sure that the person speaking to that device, that the device recognizes that person as the right authenticated person.
Yeah. Okay.
The man on the street might be able to turn your lights on and off, but he's not going to be able to access your bank account.
Nice correction. I like it. So I think that's probably a good moment to just open the questions up to the floor. I just want to let people know that we also have people who are joining us via webcast today. So my understanding is literally tens of people will be joining us via webcast. So if there are some questions which kind of come from Johnny over in the corner there, he's not a plant. He's actually asking real questions. Mike, yep. I've got to turn mine off, I think, for yours to work. This is high tech.
I'm just sort of interested in knowing sort of the volumes of people that are using search, voice search. You've already said you're 130% month on month. I'm just wondering if Google Analytics actually provides that data?
So I guess there's a couple of things. The data from search won't really come through Google Analytics, only because those people don't ever really match your site, get to your site. So the data is going to be in Google Search Console, because that's where you see the impressions that your search results are showing up on a Google search. So the thing is, when Google, for example, or Bing select a result, it's usually the instant answer up the top of a result, which just has the answer there and doesn't require any click-through. So you're going to get that data from Google Search Console. But there is some metrics coming out of these major search engines and some predictions, like Jason said earlier, Comscore is predicting that by 2020, 50% of searches on mobile are going to be voice search. So it's really on the rise, and it is growing. But yeah, I think there needs to be maybe a little bit more done to segment that out, but it should be considered a search just like any other. And so you need to keep that information in context, I guess.
Just want to follow on from the privacy discussion you had a minute ago. So obviously these devices are listening to you in your home all the time. And are we to believe that it's only when you address them that they're not harvesting everything you're actually saying?
I hope you believe that. But if that is the case, it's the way that these devices were engineered and built from the beginning. I honestly, Amazon's taken a pretty careful approach at this from the beginning, and I can speak more to the skill side than I can about the entire device architecture. But even the way that the skills work, like when someone's interacting with let's just say Domino's, we won't even pass the exact text that the person is speaking over to Domino's or to any third party. Amazon's reputation with customers is pretty, is gold precious to us. So we're very protective of how that interaction works. So if someone wants to reorder a pepperoni pizza, that the information that Domino's will get would be reorder intent and pepperoni and pizza as values that are predetermined in that application. So we really break it down to its like essential level and only pass along what's important. If your baby's crying in the background, or if your wife's yelling at you at the same time, like none of that's going to make it through. So
to anywhere.
To anywhere, to the third
servers or wherever it may be going.
Well, no, I mean that the power of these devices is that all of the actual speech recognition is done with the cloud side. Mm-hmm. The reason that we're able to make these powerful speech voice assistants is because all the computing is done in the cloud. So we can't do it on the device. So yeah, the audio is sent to the cloud, but only parts that are used and sent to the developer are those intents and slot values. You actually, it has a lifetime and it's discard, or you can go and discard it yourself if you wanted to. Any every user can do that.
Thank you.
So say you want to build an app onto Alexa, what's the actual process of that? Like, how does it actually work?
These guys can probably tell you. I'm happy to be honest.
Yeah, well, it starts with defining what the use case is, obviously. So, and you need to have a think about the interface that you're going to provide via voice. So that involves coming up with some journey mapping, just like you normally would in a graphical sense. But then it comes out to building a conversation tree and making sure that you've got some good happy paths in order to cover all the intents that you need to cover, and make sure that you're going to gather all that required information in order to service that intent. And then once you've got that sorted, then you need to build a fulfillment layer that responds, so that layer knows what the intent is, it has the information, and then it can hit APIs on your systems to get that information or execute a certain function. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, it's incredibly simple process, honestly, to just play around with. I recommend all of you to just go and take a look at some of the, we have like 1 or 2 minute videos that kind of give you a quick overview, and just it's a lot simpler than it was to build a mobile app. It's as easy as like deploying a web page, and there's tools that are coming, some of them that have launched in the US recently that'll actually make it even easier for anyone to do it.
Cheers.
Hey guys, I'm sure you can all appreciate that in order to get mass adoption for most of these new technologies, we need to have a seamless user experience. But unfortunately, design is often an afterthought with tech-led innovations. So I'm wondering whether you had any advice for designers on how to approach it, who they should be talking to, and what they should be telling their customers and employees about this kind of thing.
Are you a designer? Yeah. You're the most important part of the equation. Especially, I mean, I'm being honest, that's something that we learned pretty early on for the voice applications, because developers, and I'm guilty of this, will just go and they'll just whip something up, and you can pretty quickly end up creating an IVR system where it sounds like a phone tree when you're speaking to this voice skill. But we learned, when I say quickly, I mean like after the first managed partner that we launched with, we learned that we need to have a design-minded approach to each one of these experiences. So most of our time, of all the development for the full life cycle of a skill launch, about 50 to 60% of it spent on design, and then development is usually 20%, and the rest is testing. So you really start with what it is that you're trying to provide the user, take them, go through that interaction back and forth, creating the conversational flow, and then finding all the areas where the user can kind of go off the path, because nobody says the same thing. Nobody says something the same way. There's variations in speech patterns, in tone, and pitch, and just speaking style. So there's a lot of tools that we offer that kind of help guide the user back and help developers create proper error handling. Yes.
We need to mic up for the benefit of all the people at home.
I've got a few questions, if that's okay. Basically, first question would be similar to the last question. Where do you actually begin in terms of like, do you require a lot of programming knowledge to start plugging into this service? Following on from that, what kind of security measures are there if you're linking into, say, e-commerce accounts and things like that? Is there the chance to say, oh, I want to change my order, or where's tracking orders and updating addresses and things like that, or adding things to your cart? What kind of security is there in terms of making payments and things like that via the voice?
Okay, so
yeah, there's a few questions there. So in terms of how easy is it? I guess like Nima said, it's relatively easy. You need to be comfortable being able to work with APIs, calling them, and maybe building some of your own as well. So I'd say it's not impossible, and the tools out there are really good. I think Amazon provides some great ones, and there's some other tools for other platforms as well. In terms of the security side of things, I know obviously payments are possible, but I'm not too sure on the.
So you can integrate with other kind of authentication services, but to begin with, you need to explicitly say that you give permission for the device to integrate with those. So it's not automatically granted. so with Amazon Pay or their Amazon account, they have to say, share this information so that you authorize that. With the payment services, from what I've seen, they look to kind of authenticate either by something like a PIN number or something along the lines of that to kind of provide security. But I think you can opt into whether you want that or not. So I guess the control is with you. But yeah, I guess with the payments, it comes down to you've got to authorize those services to connect to the device at the beginning. So it's up to you whether you want that. You can't just pay for something straight away. It's not going to work. Like, you have to give permission.
Following on from that, like, how would you start educating your users to start using this service? Like, from a marketing point of view, if your customers have never heard of Alexa or Google Home or anything like that, how would you say, oh, now you can start using this? What would you recommend you sort of start educating them how to ask the right questions?
Yeah, I can provide an answer. I kicked you. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think there's power in building your brand. So if you've got a well-known brand, I guess utilizing that is going to be really helpful. There is, on some devices, this thing called implicit invocation, which is understanding the intent of what people wanted to do and then providing a skill around that. So it's not so much about the brand, then it's about, order me a pizza. So like that invocation will go deep link into the skill or the action, and it will create, it will then offer up services generally that they're able to fulfill that request. So Domino's or Pizza Hut or Pizza Capers or whatever. So I think there's work being done around that. But yeah, there is education just thinking about what people would ask it on one hand and building a brand on the other. But maybe even sharing it on mediums like social media.
Right. I'm going to add like two just clarifying points to the first two questions you had. So as far as how easy it is to build, like there's a ton of just simple, easy to use templates that you can just try out, and all the code is provided. It's easy as insert joke here or insert question here and deploy it. So it's a good way to get a feel for what's possible. Then the whole component with integrating with e-commerce, like I think the way to think about this is you can integrate anything you want into this. All of this is a open platform that will access services that are available through an API. So the security mechanism first and foremost for like any of these providers is OAuth 2 is what you would use to authenticate yourself as a user of let's say of Domino's or of Uber. That's the first step. And then some banks definitely that want an extra layer of security on top of that for each interaction with the device. They'll add a voice PIN, as he was mentioning, or there's others that they feel comfortable with letting you reorder your pizza after you've logged in with your username and password, and that's really more of like a kind of a product and policy decision for that specific partner. And we definitely have best practices that we guide these partners on. But the point is that we can make any of those. You can make any of these things. Adding something to your cart, purchasing something, whatever it is, you can make any of those possible. It's only limited to your imagination and like the skill and the will of your developers, basically.
I'm just interested in the sort of final question around educating users. Have you got some examples that you've seen that have been that nice first step? So you've just introduced voice functionality to your environment. What are the marketing messages? Is it giving examples of what a request may be? What are the kind of tips and trips?
We're talking educating end users, right? Like the actual customers. Yeah, honestly, I think we've gone through different iterations of our marketing emails that go out to partners or to customers, and the one that seems to have landed and be the most successful is one that just is a simple list of here's the things you can say. Yeah. Like Alexa, how many steps did I take today? Alexa, how did I sleep last night? Alexa, what could I cook for dinner? Alexa, play some Bon Jovi. It's a thing, like honestly, there's quite a day. So much. Yeah, it's every day for me. There's a lot that these devices can do that people don't really know about. So discovery is always a challenge. So helping people understand just what you can say and not overly complicating it is probably proven the most effective in my opinion.
can I ask one last question, please? So in terms of Alexa and Google Home, how close are they in terms of what's possible on both of them? Are they pretty much on par with each other, or is Alexa miles ahead, or where would you suggest starting with either? Can you start both at the same time, or would it be better to do one or the other?
I can be very, very impartial on this question.
I know it's a risky question.
No, honestly, they're both great at different things, and I worked for a few years in the Amazon App Store, where we were the third place app store for quite some time. So it was pretty exciting that we had such a leg up in this area, this technology. So Amazon definitely has gotten a head start, but I don't for a minute discount the capabilities of the Google platform and what's possible. And honestly, I think that most people in Amazon were happy about the Google stepping into the space, because it just validates voice and the space in general. So it's not, this isn't like a fad that's going to go away. Like, this is how things will progress. And you can absolutely build for both, and there's tools that can help you do that, and deploy to each. There's a lot more similarities than there are differences, but it's just thinking about the end user from the perspective of voice is the best way to start.
I might add just one thing. Similar to designing for screen sizes, perhaps a different way to look at it is, where are your users? Surveying your customers, asking them what devices they have available to them, because if they're a majority Alexa, then you may as well start there. So that's just
Yeah. Just keen to learn what apps you might recommend people start using this stuff with. So I've got an iPhone and that sort of stuff. Never used the voice recognition, but what would be kind of low-hanging fruit that you could start trialing with this as a user to start to become familiar with some of the technologies available?
Is there a JB Hi-Fi nearby? You should get yourself a device.
Yeah, so it's some low barriers to entry in terms of just start using. Yes. So I think I touched on it earlier with what I use. Is the simple stuff. So checking the weather in the morning, playing music.
That's through the weather app.
No, so that's just like default behavior.
Oh, you mean just with your phone? How you get started?
Oh yeah, just in general. So is it? So you need the Alexa unit to use.
So you have an iPhone. I mean, you could just download. There's something called Reverb, which is there's two parts of the Alexa platform. There's one that allows you to build a skill, and then there's another one that lets you embed Alexa into any device that you want it to. So it's a free service that we open and allow anyone to use. And there's actually a bunch of iOS developers that have created Alexa apps. They're not managed or created by Amazon, but they're just using our APIs. So you could actually test almost the full Alexa experience for free using these apps. So if you just want to get a feel for what's possible, how it works, there's also a web simulator you can use. It's called EchoSim.io. That was just created by a third-party developer that works the exact same way, and you could go to the browser and use the full Alexa experience for free.
The devices are pretty cheap though, so you can get one reasonably easy.
He's going to buy you a device.
No, but they have introduced kind of lower kind of ones like the Echo Dot and stuff to get people started, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably after you play around with it for a while, it's fun, and it's especially just have something to have around the house. It just becomes easy.
Stand. With regards to voice SEO, how does that work for brands and consumers in that with the screen? Obviously, you're getting page 1, 10 results if you've paid at the top, SEO and SEM. And then with voice, you're going to get what? How does that work, and how do you get ranked as the top? What's the business model for that?
Yep. So, I mean, the kind of ranking remains similar to a part. It remains similar. There is a little bit of differences. So, it's mainly focused around those instant answered or featured snippet boxes. So there's a bit of work that you can do to optimize for that around providing schema and mobile page speed and the way you structure the content on the page. But essentially, it's going to take that snippet at the top of the page to return a voice result. So if I search for who was the 44th president of the United States, it'll come up with the answer, and it grabs that by kind of scraping your page and looking for the answer. And if it's usually in the first couple of paragraphs, it kind of helps to provide that answer to people, and it'll say where it's from as well. So it'll say according to this website, blah blah blah.
And with a less binary answer, what is the best Thai restaurant near me, for example? And I don't like the first option.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I say, give me another option, give me another, and does it just keep repeating that functionality?
Yeah, I believe so. Usually with most of these, it will come up with a couple of results. So if you ask for what are the best Thai restaurants in me, it'll come up with a couple, and it uses some information like how much details are provided, the amount of reviews, what the star rating was, and context like that. So that's about optimizing for local. But if you've got more information for Google or Bing to use, you're more likely to show up there. But also optimizing those listings around certain keywords like Thai, I think is going to be able to help you boost that kind of local search ranking on voice. Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Just interested to see whether or not you've got any figures on the actual penetration of these devices. So obviously you've got Google Home, you've got Alexa, and in the US it would be, some kind of split, and then how many are in, how many houses. And then do you have any idea of what the current state of play is in Australia? So how many people are buying these devices? So if we create these things, how many people are listening?
So what I've read, I think it's about, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the US it's about 20% of adults have a voice device. Obviously not all echoes, but here in Australia I've read it's currently kind of 4%. And it's projected to again get up to the levels of around 20% to meet the US devices. Yeah. So voice enabled, any device that you can use a voice assistant on.
Yeah, and we typically don't go into detail about numbers for these types of things, but during one of our last shareholder letters, the number that they shared was just that there's been tens of millions of Alexa devices sold worldwide. But if you did a simple search online for statistics around this, there's a lot of third-party research groups that have done pretty detailed studies on what the projected numbers are. But that's all I could say. Yeah.
So just on that then, so we don't know whether or not it's Google Home's a major platform or Alexa in Australia yet.
It's probably pretty early at this point. Yeah. I think Alexa is definitely the larger player worldwide. But Google Home did launch here a bit earlier. But I think Australia is an interesting market, and I think the adoption is gonna be maybe a tiny bit slower, probably a variety of reasons. But I think it's very early in the stage.
Just following on from that question, as an organization, if you want to provide voice search capabilities, you don't want to exclude some of your customer base because they're on one ecosystem versus the other. So taking an approach where you can provide a consistent user experience across a couple of different ecosystems, how does that kind of work, I guess?
Yeah, I think we've touched on it a bit earlier, but there are platforms that really focus on that voice user experience, and it's all about building the range of intents that you want to service, and all the follow-up questions to gather all that information, and then from there that voice experience, that conversation tree can be deployed to a range of different platforms. So it can be deployed to Amazon, it can be deployed to Google, deployed to chatbot interfaces as well. So yeah, I think that the tools out there to be technology agnostic and ecosystem agnostic are pretty good.
And just in terms of if you wanted to launch to a number of customers, but you don't necessarily know whether they've actually got the physical devices themselves, are you better off to create some sort of an app where you can just do it through your phone to start with? Because again, you want to provide the functionality for a broader range of people without forcing them to go and and purchase hardware?
Yeah, it's an idea.
I would say that a lot of some of these voice assistants are on your phone. So in Google's example, they have the Google Assistant built in. So if you're going to build out something, you're not only building it for the device, but you're building it for the Google example, for the Google Assistant, which is on pretty much every Android phone. But these platforms allow you to kind of push out to other things as well. If you were to build it kind of technology agnostic, you could push out to a Facebook Messenger chatbot or to even Cortana or Cisco Spark or any of those kind of chatbot or chat-related interfaces where there's interaction.
It's not like building for iOS and Android where they're completely different like work streams and efforts. Like I'd say 80% of the work that you're going to do is going to be reusable in every form factor that you end up deploying this. And yeah, again, there are other tools that help you do. You could do it to your app, your local app, or you could do it to all the different platforms. But most of the work is reusable, so it's better to just focus on that part of it and then leverage these tools to get it everywhere.
We might have time for one more question if we have one more.
I've got a question here from Matt on Facebook. So when will the technology get to a point where they can replace HR directors? And you can tell me if that's possible or not first.
Depends on what his HR director is doing.
Yeah, that's right. Very true.
Is it possible still?
Should we ask Alexa?
I've had bad HR directors that don't really do anything. So my current one, they're irreplaceable. So I don't know.
Thanks,
very diplomatic answer. In case this gets back.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. It was, it's always interesting when you have these panel sessions when you open up to the floor. There's always that fear that you'll just hear crickets in the room and things will come to an abrupt end. So while it's always a nervous experience when you don't know what the questions are, I think that it was really great that everyone was so engaged in the process. So we've now come to the end of our event, and I'd first of all like to thank the panel. I'd particularly like to thank Nima for being here and sharing those insights, and also being there for the questions from the floor, which can sometimes be a little bit of a roller coaster for a brand when you're in the room. But I really appreciate the openness and the approach that you've taken today, and I've certainly learned something this morning. I'd like to thank, from Formation, I'd like to thank Julia, Claudia, Cassie, and April for their work in bringing the event together today, and for Johnny for making it all work on the day, except for his HR director question. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for coming. My final thoughts are that voice represents a rare opportunity for organizations to establish leadership in a space that's becoming omnipresent. And if you're not doing so already, I'd encourage you to start having a conversation about voice. There's been some really interesting questions raised, and clearly we're, as organizations, we're still very early in the journey. And it goes without saying that Formation would certainly like to be part of that journey. So to get the ball rolling, as attendees of the event today, we'd like to offer you a complimentary 2-hour workshop here at our office. The first hour will be focused on availability, and the second on utility. So if you'd like to take us up on that offer and book that session, please come and see me or any of the Formation team. And again, thank you and have a great day.